right, it says we're live on Facebook. All right, Lab Code Agents, guess what? It is Brian Curtis and Dale Archdekin back again for Cash Call, the beloved show that all of you just can't seem to miss every week. And I'm happy to be here. Brian, how was your holiday? How was your vacation?
Vacation. There was a vacation. So I did work only half a day on Friday, so I think that's a good thing. But
You
it's
are a
just
wild man. You are
yeah,
really lowering the standards of business professionals everywhere with that stuff.
so I kind of laughed. I woke up on Saturday morning and realized, oh yeah, we didn't stay up till midnight. So I guess I've gotten to the point where I just don't care anymore. It was 2020. I am so excited to be in 2021. I don't know how 2021 is going to go, but I know it's going to be different than 2020. And as much as I dislike 2020, I'm just excited for something new.
My prediction is that it's going to be better than 2020. I think that there's a lot of pent up demand of people that want to sell, who didn't sell otherwise, who will, and and buyers who couldn't get something who will buy, and including those people who sat on the sidelines because they are afraid of coronavirus,
Absolutely.
which is perfectly fine. But I think that attitude is going to shift. I think we're going to see a very quick shift in that attitude quickly, at least by quarter two of this year.
Yeah, I look at Q2, and here's the thing. You and I may or may not go over calls today. We kind of talked about this on the front end, but I kind of think it's a good thing to start talking about a little bit of philosophy just as we go into this, and what are the things that are going to be important. So I agree with everything Dale just said. Somewhere between Q2 and Q3, the inventory is going to open back up. What's going to cause that? Well, I've talked to our listing agent multiple times last year, and like, why don't we have more listings? Why don't we have more listings? He goes, everybody I call
They don't want to
says
sell.
they don't want to sell because of coronavirus. And,
Right.
and that's a real thing. And it's something that's going to continue to happen. And again, when's the virus going to be out, or when's the vaccine going to be out? I don't know. I don't have mine signed up yet. So, but what do I do in the meantime? So I do as many transactions as I can in the meantime, still go out there. But here's the two things that I think that if it was me that I'd be focusing on, and both of them focus around the same thing. Oddly enough, you reached out to me about this the other day. Circle prospecting. Circle prospecting and nurturing right now is more important than it's ever been, as far as I'm concerned. Why? Because at some point in time, somebody's going to decide they want to list their house. Well, if you talk to them in January and February and March and they want to list in June, you're in the running. Well,
Yeah.
how do I get that lead? Well, circle prospecting. And, I think that is arguably the thing. If you look at the agents who are going to crush 2021 on the list side, it's going to be because they're willing to do that circle prospecting, build those nurtures out, and then let that floodgate open when people aren't afraid of Corona anymore.
Yeah. And add to the circle prospecting those expireds that are 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 years old, FISBOs as far as back as that. Anybody's data that you can get who owns a property who attempted to sell it at some point or didn't, right? So circle prospect is people typically who didn't attempt to sell but own property in your target market.
Mhm.
Also grab the list of those people who did attempt to sell that property, right? From a long time ago, and just load all that into the system, because there, for every, what's that principle? For every action, there is an equal and opposite reaction.
Yep, that's a law.
Yeah, it's a law, right? So if 2020 saw people being conservative and deciding to wait and not do something, based on that law of nature, you're going to have the pendulum's going to go the other way. There are going to be more people who decide to take action and decide to do something this year than there were last year. It's a law of nature, right?
Absolutely.
And
So
with the
yeah.
rest of the factors in line, right? The interest rates remaining low, easy to borrow money, regulation, we haven't over-regulated lending. So that's the way it is.
So let's just talk about this for a second. So, I get a lot of people when I say circle prospecting, their eyes roll back in their head and go, "I'm never doing that," because most people equate circle prospecting to what? Cold calling, right?
Yeah,
I'm not going to
exactly.
cold call. I didn't become a real estate agent to cold call. And great, you know what? I can tell you, I'm not cold calling either, just to be honest. And I'm not circle prospecting from the perspective of me doing it, but I have a company that does it for me. So
There are
choice A
companies
or
out there
choice
that will
B.
do it for you.
Yeah, or you could call Dale up and he'll train your ISA to do it for you. So, I
Yes.
mean, there's opportunities out there. But let's just say for the sake of argument, somebody wanted to circle prospect. Let's go over some scripts and stuff so that, in my opinion, we show how easy it is. Honestly,
Yeah.
it feels like a cold call, but it's probably the easiest cold call there is to make. No one's going to get pissed at you. I'm not saying no one, there's always some jerk,
There's always
but
somebody who's going to get mad.
999 out of 1,000 people are not going to be offended by a circle prospect call. So, do you want to go over your script, Dale, and then I'll go over mine?
Sure. Yeah, and I want to give this caveat. I find it easier if you have some kind of premise around which you're calling. So,
Absolutely.
and I've heard you do this also before, where in some cases this is absolutely true, right? You have a buyer that you're literally looking for a certain type of property for in a certain neighborhood. That's great, and you can say it confidently. So one of the best scripts that I know of for circle prospecting is just you just do that in general, right? We you know that if you could find a home that was priced right in a neighborhood, that you would easily have 3 or 4 buyers for it today. So you just go based on that principle, and that would sound something like ring ring.
Hey, this is Brian.
Hey Brian, this is Dale Archdekin with Whatever Realty. How are you today?
Doing great. How can I help you, Dale?
You know what? I'm just giving you a real quick call. I know I'm catching you out of the blue, but I'm here with Whatever Realty, and we have a couple of buyers that are specifically looking to move into your neighborhood. And so I wanted to see if you happen to be interested in possibly selling your home within the next, say, 3 to 6 months, or if you know someone who is, who's not currently listed for sale.
I don't know anybody off the top of my head, but I do think that my neighbor at 123 Main Street tried to sell their house about 6 months ago, and you might want to call them. It's Bob and Sue Smith, or
Oh,
and yeah.
that's excellent. I really appreciate you giving me that reference. And as a matter of fact, I had them on my list to call them today also. That's excellent. Do you happen to have a good number for them?
Yeah, I apologize, I don't, but if I did, I'd give it to you. I mean, you seem like a nice guy.
I appreciate that. Okay, now if you're willing to, I'd go into finding out how long you've been in the area, right? When you moved in, and then I'd come back around to a question at some point, which is like, so Brian, do you think that you might look at moving, say, in the next year, or are we thinking like 10 years plus, right?
Pretty happy here, but my youngest is probably, let's say my youngest is 17 years old. So, he'll be moving out of the house and, knock on wood, he'll be moving out of the house sometime in the next year or so. And honestly, my wife and I probably don't need a 2,500 square foot house for the two of us. So at that point in time, it might, I might consider moving if, depending if there was a good deal out there. But honestly, I have no idea what my house is even worth.
Great. Okay, now there's another obvious opening that we would take. Now let's say that you didn't give me that,
Mhm.
and you say, no, I don't know, we're gonna go. So let's do that. Brian, do you happen to know, have you thought about potentially selling your home in, say, the next 3 to 6 months, or do you know of anyone that might be?
Honestly, I don't. I don't know anybody. I don't talk to my neighbors. I'm kind of a recluse, and especially with this COVID thing. And I'm
I
pretty
get it.
comfortable where I am. This has kind of been my dream house. So,
Okay, well, that's wonderful. I'm so glad you love living in a neighborhood. It is a great neighborhood. So, Brian, are you looking at how the home values have been going over time? Have you been checking out home sales or anything like that?
every once in a while, I'll see something on TV, but I don't actively research it. If that's what you're asking.
Okay, got it. Well, we have a special subscription that we use for our clients called Home Pro that can email you, once a month. It just shows you what your neighbors' houses are selling for, so that you can track the value of your own home. And it comes right to your email. You don't have to sign up for anything, and you can turn it off at any time. You think that's something you might be interested in?
Yeah, I kind of would. I think that would be some interesting information that you sending that over to me. My email is
Great.
bob@bob.com.
Great. Now we have Bob in our database, right? And, if you can pull those calls off, if you can have 10 of those conversations a day, and you can get a couple of those email addresses a day, and by the end of the week, maybe find 1 or 2 people that are thinking about selling in the next 6 to 12 months, uh, you're going to immediately increase the amount of business that you're going to do this year.
Absolutely. And I don't know what system did you say you were using for that, Dale?
I just made it up.
Okay,
There's a
so
bunch of there's a bunch of systems out there.
I'm gonna promote a system, even though I don't have any. I've got no skin in this game at all. As you guys can see, I'm wearing a Ylopo shirt. Ylopo runs HomeBot, and you can get it free if you're a Ylopo client, or I think HomeBot's like somewhere between 20 and 50 bucks a month. I can't remember how much, but it's $50 or less a month. And I can promise you that something like HomeBot, if you get a couple hundred people a year on HomeBot, it's it's unbelievably fabulous because you can see when the people open it. So, hey, look, Dale opened my HomeBot report, and now what do I call it? Hey, Dale, it's Brian. I'm just following up with you. I know we spoke a couple months ago about your home, and you said you were considering selling in the next 6 months. And have you been looking at those reports I've been sending you, by the way? Oh yeah, I really love those reports, and they're really good. And if you guys look at HomeBot, it's got all kinds of great data in it. It like tells you how much if you were to Airbnb your house. It shows you your current equity. It's an actual legitimate report. To me, it's the 20th century version of what realtor.com used to have. What's that thing called? I can't remember, but it was
Or like Top Producers Market
top.
Snapshot.
That's what I was looking for. Yeah, realtor.com top produce market snapshot. This is a
This is
modern
the modern
version
version.
of market snapshot, and it's great. People love it. Like I would say, if I've sent out 100 market snapshots, I would get about 80% of people unsubscribed. Where if I send out 100 home bots, I'm getting about 40% unsubscribe rate.
That's
So,
great.
if 6 out of 10 people are going to stay on this, and it's not spammy, and that's why, because it doesn't feel spammy. It has good data in it. It has a great interface. So if you don't have some system like that, you do it. And again, I'm not here to get you to spend your money, but it's really easy to follow up with somebody and say, hey, I noticed that hey, I sent out my HomeBot reports yesterday, and I'm just reaching out to see if you had the opportunity to look at yours. Of course, I know you looked at yours. My system showed it open. So it's a really good opening script, and people might go, oh gosh, it's funny. It looks like my house has increased, 10% in the last 4 months. That's really, really good. Yeah, and if you guys don't want to sell, one of the things that's really good for your lender will love you for this is, so with that in mind, you've got a bunch of equity you mentioned. So if you want, I could refer you to my lender, and he could talk to you about, what a refi would look like if that makes sense. I don't know if it makes sense for you or not, but if it makes sense for you, you might be able to save a bunch of money and get your house paid off faster. So I'll be happy to introduce you to so and so at such and such mortgage.
Yeah. I think that brings up a good point, and I'd like to move into also before we, while we're on the topic, is having people do it for you, right?
Mhm.
And what are you looking for if you're going to pay to have somebody do it for you? Because as you and I both know, and we both experienced, and we've both done this, we always want to throw money at a problem, right? So if I have a problem with lead gen, I'd like to throw money at it. If I
Yep.
have a problem with lead conversion, I'd like to throw money at it, right?
Mhm.
I want to pay somebody to do those things that I can't or don't want to do. And so that is a really common thing for real estate agents and team leaders to do. So you and I both have the experience of hiring these people to do it for us and wasting money on people to do things for us. So, what should we be looking for? You're currently running, you have a company running this
I
for
do.
you. What are you looking for?
So there's a couple of things that I think that, so let me just go back and say, so let me tell you some of the things I've done wrong, because I've used different companies throughout the last 5 years simply because I'm too busy. I've been too busy. When I started building the team, there was just something had to give. I was already working 50, 60 hours a week. Something had to give. So a couple of things that I did wrong. I assumed when I hired a company that they were going to do it correctly. That's a really, 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 if I can't say it again, really bad assumption.
Yeah.
So any company
What
that you're
one that we've
working,
all made multiple times.
there you go.
Every time we
So,
hire someone, we think they know what's in our head and that they're going to do it the way we think it should get done.
well, and here's the thing, that no one tells them what to do. They do call review with these guys, but I'm talking about they pick one out of 150 phone calls and go, oh, that one went okay. Or that one went okay, and but do this better. And so, it's not, they don't have most of these companies that I've worked with do not have the bandwidth to manage that person as well as you and I do. So at the end of the day, I wish that it was simply plug and play, go get listings. I haven't found that system. If anybody knows, please let me know. I'm interested. I want to
Let
pay
us
money
know
for that.
because that company will, they will be amazing. They'll go
Yeah.
through the roof.
So what do we have to do? So a couple of things you can do. So if you're going to hire an inside sales associate, whether that's local inside your office or whether that is outsourced, I was on a call the other day with Robert Slack, and he talked about how that if you want to hire somebody in the Philippines, you can run an ad and you'll have 100 people within 24 hours if you run an ad on Craigslist in the Philippines. So just throwing that out there. I don't have the ads yet. I haven't done that, but there's plenty of VAs that you can go out there and hire. But if you're going to do that, you can't teach them once and then come back 6 months later and go, why are you failing? So, if I'm doing that, if I have an inside sales associate, whether that is, outsourced to the Philippines or whatever, I'm doing role play with them at least once a week, preferably 2 or 3 times a week. They need to start their day for the first 15 minutes, making sure that you know what the heck they're saying. Then what am I doing? For every 100 phone calls that they're making, I'm auditing 5 of those phone calls, randomly auditing 5 of those phone calls. Why? Because if I don't know what the heck these people are saying. I had a lady call me the other day from a FISBO, that was was FISBO prospected. It had been on the market for less than 24 hours, and the guy asked the lady, so when are you gonna hire a real estate agent to help take all this pressure off you? She wasn't aware of the pressure yet. She had it. We were probably the first people who called her. She had literally
Right.
just put it in there. So, that's a silly, we had to go back to that guy and say, look, if the house has been on the market for one day, maybe we're not so aggressive about how painful it is to be a FISBO. They don't know how painful it is to be a FISBO yet.
Right.
They'll know in four
Unless
or
they,
5 hours, but
yeah, unless they tell you that it is, right?
right. So, we just had to coach that guy up. So please, whether you hire someone like I work with Phone Animal, I've worked with Appointments Today, I've worked with Power ISA, I've worked with Inside Sales Associate. I don't care who it is. You have to manage and lead these people, and you have to stay on top of them. We have to check in on what's important to us. And I don't know about you, but there's nothing more important. And this is what I've heard from every agent I've spoken to in the last 6 months. There's nothing more important right now than getting more listings. So why would you just plug that and hope it works out? You need to stay on top of it and manage these people.
Yeah. In most markets that I coach teams in, buyers are a dime a dozen. It's the
Mhm.
sellers that are high valued right now.
Yes.
That's
So
hard to come by. So yes, getting listings is super important. And I think I appreciate you saying that even when you're using one of those services, you still have to coach or you have to work with the ISA that's working with you. And I think one of the points that I would add to what you're looking for is when you're doing something like circle prospecting, for instance, you can't go into it expecting that you're going to have them do these calls for you and in the first 30 days you're going to have a bunch of appointments. That's just not going to happen.
mhm.
you, in most markets across the US, circle prospecting at best is somewhere around 100 contact to one piece of business kind of ratio, meaning if they speak to 100 people, you will find someone who is likely to sell in the next 3 to 6 months, 1 out of 100 typically. For some reason, I don't know why, but some rural areas and like Texas and some of the southern states seem to have a little bit better circle
Yeah.
prospect ratio. Have you experienced that? I know you're in Arkansas. I don't know how your circle prospect ratio is.
Yeah, I don't have a point of comparison, I guess. So it works just fine in my market. So there's that. But
Do you know
it,
what,
it
do you have any idea what the contact to, say appointment or potential piece of business is?
so long term, we're at about a little over 2% long term.
So
So I
two
don't
out of
have it.
100.
Yeah, but again, here's the thing about this, and I'll just do math for you. So we pay $1,200 a month. This is not a massive expenditure every month, compared to a lot of our other expenditures. So we're paying $1,200 a month for someone to go out and circle prospect for us. Now, here's the downside of circle prospecting. It's not about getting appointments, and that's, I think, a lot of where people fail. It's
Right.
about creating nurture. So
Right.
the person who's doing circle prospecting for you says, hey, just like Gail said, are you considering selling your house anytime soon? Oh yeah, honestly, we're thinking about it at the end of 2021. Perfect. That is a
Great.
that is a phenomenal nurture.
That'd be a
That
great answer to get.
Yeah, yeah. I'm, and you're going to hear this. I guarantee you. I'm not making any of these circle prospecting calls myself, but I guarantee you, if you talk to 100 people, probably 15 to 20 of them are saying, yeah, we're waiting for COVID to be over. We're waiting for the vaccine to be distributed to the country. Whatever their version of that is, probably 20 to 30% of the people who are wanting to sell are waiting for that. So
Oh yeah.
that's why I think this is so important right now. So if you're the person who's starting this in January and expecting some of these people to start listing in June, July, and August, now is the time to do that. So I get somebody and they say, yeah, we're planning on selling. Great. Now I'm just putting them on a drip. I'm putting them on a home bot. And then I'm following up with them every 60 days. And then as it gets closer, I'm following up with them 30 days. And then as it gets closer, I'm following up with them 15 days. But at the end of the day, now is the time to start for summer. And there's other ways to get listings. I'm not saying circle prospecting is the only way, and neither are you, but I don't know that there's a better long-term plan right now than doing that. Now, here's some other stuff. If you want to get high tech, you can create a Facebook audience with those people and then do some video remarketing to them. You can send people letters. It doesn't just have to be on the phone. As a matter of fact, I like the concept of air, land, and sea, which to me is phone calls, text messages, emails, letters, and sometimes even door knocking. So let's make sure that we're hitting all these people wherever they want, wherever they need to be hit, just over and over and over again. So,
Yep.
that's a lot of work. I'm not saying it's not, but again, I think you said, somebody said this to me earlier. We make a lot of money in this business if we do it right. So, I read a guy on Facebook the other day, and he was talking about his numbers door knocking in 2019. They were unbelievable. Like he made like $75,000 in GCI just door knocking. You
That's
know,
great.
so
Yeah. Excellent. All right. So everybody, the purpose here is we want to get you set up for 2021, right? Which is, and that started now. I mean, we're in the first week of 2021 now. And something that I'm working with teams on is everybody does all this famous, amazing goal setting and planning for 2021, right? All these
mhm.
hopes and dreams that they're going to have. And then we go on vacation, and then we come back, and in the first week I'm talking to these agents and I'm talking to these teams, and I say, hey, how much what are you going to earn, what's your goal for units sold, and how much you're going to earn in 2021? And they go and they start shuffling papers, and they're like, where did I put that? That's not the way it's going to work, right? If you have a goal that you want to reach, it needs to be in front of you. You need to know that, like you know your social security number and your date of birth. So here's the really simple thing that we do with the teams and agents that we work with is, how many houses do you want to sell? How much money is that going to make you, right? And then this is something that we do, Brian, with agents especially, is we say, okay, great, you're going to make 150,000. That's what your goal is.
Mhm.
What is your cost of living, right? What do you have to make to support your lifestyle, keep the lights on, make things happen, keep all the plates in the
90,000.
air? $90,000, right? Great. So we've got $60,000 in what I call discretionary, right? $60,000 you're gonna pay your car off. You're gonna put some in savings. You want to have a luxurious trip or whatever, right? And what's funny is probably half of the agents that we talk to hadn't even thought about that 60 grand and exactly what they were going to do and where it was going to go and how much was going where. And then you make them do that and they're like, oh, okay, wow, I didn't think about that, that's a lot of money. Okay, yeah, great. And then we say, okay, now what I want you to do is, if you were going to earn an extra $60,000 in 2021, I want you to take that 60,000 and I want you to divide it by 12, right? You divide it by 12 because you're going to have to make payments on it. If you want to end up at the end of the year with an extra 60K, you have to make payments on that 60K. So what's 60 divided by 12?
5.
5,000. So then I say, guess what, Sam agent, Sally agent, you are the proud owner now of a payment due at the end of January of $5,000, where you have to go to your checking account, set up an auto transfer into a new savings account, right, for your goal achievement this year, and schedule a payment for the end of January to go in there for $5,000. And they're like, oh, right. Yeah, about that. And I'm like, okay, well, that's fine. I know it's the beginning of the year. So at the end of January, you have three options. You can either pay that full $5,000 amount because you're going to hit your goals this year, or you can pay what you can pay toward that 5,000 and you roll over the balance to February, or you readjust your goal and admit that you're not willing to do what you have to do in order to make an extra 60 grand this year. Those are your three choices. And we do
Yeah.
that at the end of every month.
And here's an interesting thing, Dale, and I think that a lot of people don't think about this. So I had a coach many years ago. I had just started in real estate. He was a life coach, not a real estate coach. But the question he asked me is the same question you and I ask agents all the time now. How much money do you want to make? And I'll be honest, I didn't know. I really didn't know. And he looked at me and he said, pick a number. I said, what do you mean? He said, pick a number. And I was like, I didn't want to. I didn't want to commit to something I didn't think I could do.
Yeah.
So what did I learn from that? I learned from that is that numbers are arbitrary. And the real thing is, and this is, it's funny because I actually ask that question when I'm interviewing agents to work on our team. How much money do you, and I say this very distinctly, how much money do you need to make? What do you mean? In other words, to pay your bills, pay the IRS, do all this stuff, how much money do you need to make? Oh, I need to make 50 grand. Great. What's your goal? My goal is 120. What on earth are you going to do with that other $70,000? Because
Yeah.
here's what will almost always happen. Water seeks its own level. And what I mean by that is that financial thermostat kicks in. In other words, you get to the end of January and you're like, okay, my goal was to make $10,000 in January, but I need $5,000 to pay my bills. And you got 5,000, you got $5,500. And you
Right.
go, great month. No, it wasn't. You missed by $4,500.
Right.
But so really what I'm saying is we let ourselves off the hook. And the reason that we left ourselves off the hook is we didn't commit at the level. A goal is a wish. It's I
Right.
really hope I get there. Well, guess
Right.
what? I've hoped and prayed and done all that stuff. And, I'm not dogging on prayer, but I'm just saying, generally speaking, that's not what's gotten me ahead of life. Of those people who are spiritual, I'm a firm believer that you got to do your part too. If you want to pray, amazing, but God's not going to send a gold bar to your house tomorrow. So that is my point. So
No.
again,
There's a
not
whole lot
dogging
of
on the
people that have
spiritual.
prayed for gold bars who haven't gotten them.
Yeah,
So
I've done it.
ain't getting that one.
I don't have a single gold bar. But
No.
my point, my point is very simple, is I love what Dale said. He said, you got to make a payment to yourself. You got to make this real and you've got to make it matter. Or otherwise, when things get hard and when you don't have a great month, you'll go, well, I paid my bills. And
Yep.
I've watched agent after agent after agent go, well, I paid my bills. So
Your goals are achieved in installments, right?
I love that.
Make an installment payment. That's what it is.
And make it every single day. That's not that installment payment, but make that deposit every single day. And that's the other thing a lot of people don't do. I had a good week. Then what happens? Then you have a crappy week because
All
you're
right.
you're like, had a good week. I had a good month.
Woohoo. Yeah.
I can't tell you the number of people I've seen close 7, 8, 9, 10 transactions in a month and turn around the next month and close one.
Yeah. Or be gone for 2 months, right?
There is that. I was
Go
trying to
on
be a little more
vacation. Be
positive.
like, oh, I'll catch up with that later.
But anyway,
Uh,
we're kind
great.
of at the
All right.
bottom of the hour.
Yes, we are. All right, everybody. 2021. Brian and I are back here to help you guys with your calls, with your conversations, with your scripting and dialogue, since that's what we do, lead conversion. And if we always post the link. If you'd like to submit any calls to us to have them reviewed, we can certainly do that. But we'll be back here again next week.
Yeah, and next week we will start in our more traditional format of doing calls. So I look
Oh, wait a
forward to
minute.
doing that
No,
again.
no, no, no. You know what we're doing next week?
No.
We've
Oh, we
got
have Robbie T.
we have Robbie T coming in here next week. The
Oh, little shout out to
master.
Robbie.
Yeah, there we go. The master of text and electronic messaging conversion. So we're going to have him in here next week, interviewing him to give you tips and advice on how you can best spark up, continue, and convert using your conversations via text and DM and things like that, right?
Yeah,
Where
and
you're
let me give
not
a
having spoken conversations.
and let me give a shout out to Robbie because those of you who don't know him, you want to listen to what he's got to say. So, Dale's an amazing coach. Pat myself on the back. I think I'm pretty decent, but everybody's got different ways of doing things. And Dale and I don't know everything, and that's why we're bringing on some. We're going to try and bring on a couple more guests this year because the reality is you may resonate with somebody else a little bit different than us. Not that you can't get information from both, but Robbie's got some unique ways of looking at things, and we're all about sharing our expertise and helping everybody get better. So,
Absolutely. All right. See everybody next week. Thanks for joining us.
thanks, everybody.